What's up, guys? I want to talk to you today about what might be wrong if you're getting code P0507 on a Pontiac Sunfire or Chevy Cavalier, whatnot, anything with the GM 2.4 liter. Now, originally, I was assuming, when you hit the gas pedal, RPMs go up, you let off, then you have an issue. Starts idle surging, starts bucking. It's like the idle air control valve isn't adjusting properly to lead you to assume that there's a vacuum leak. But in this case, it only happened when you let off of the throttle. So, that would lead you toward IAC, right? Well, you should clean this stuff anyway. Clean the IAC, clean the, little vacuum lines, the MAF sensor and whatnot. Well, still doing it. Every time I let off the throttle. So what? Bad IAC, so I'm looking around for vacuum leaks. Sprayed starter fluids and throttle body cleaner and whatnot. So basically, I started pinching off hoses, and I was replicating the problem some of the time. I was pinching off like a hose over there by the intake manifold. I was pulling on it, pinching it, and the idle would start surging. It would start dying out, the idle would start running high. But that's not related. So what was actually happening is it's a two-part problem. So the vehicle had bad motor mounts, and I eventually found by spraying carb cleaner that there's a leak in the intake manifold gasket, which I'll get to in a minute, but that's where the leak is. And I was seeing it when I let off the throttle because of the bad motor mounts, and the throttle body sticks out about this far, and it was hinging. So when you hit the gas and the motor kicks one way and you let off and it kicks the other way, well, when it kicks this way, the throttle body was hinging, just like a millimeter, introducing a leak into the intake manifold. But if it hinged the other way, it would seal up the leak. So, just something to look for. Might save some people some time searching, because it's not really what you expect when you let off the throttle. You expect it to be throttle body related, not due to the fact that there's also bad motor mounts that introduce a vacuum leak, but only when you move the motor a certain way. Move the motor this way, no vacuum leak. Move it the other way, vacuum leak. Not exactly fun to reproduce, but there it is. Alright guys, I'm going to do a little demonstration here. As you can see, running open throttle body. Now, some people will say to do a smoke test to look for the vacuum leak, but I'll show you another quick thing you can do to see if it's the throttle body, or at least if it's as bad as this one is. See if I push in on this, the idle will get better, RPMs will go down because I'm getting rid of the leak. If I pull on it, it'll open up and the RPM will start surging away. I'll go ahead and push on that. If it gets really bad, then the motor will struggle to run to the point that if you unplug the MAF sensor, the motor will buck and cut off. And when that happens, you'll see a puff of blue smoke come right through the intake manifold right here. So it's not ideal, but it's one way to do a smoke test. It's like a backward smoke test. The thing's got bad spark plug tube seals. Originally this vehicle wasn't running. Replaced the fuel pump, fuel filter. Got it running, but it's not running right. And I guess as it heats up and cools down, this intake manifold decides to leak more or less. You can see if I pull it up and push it down, you can see it flexing here. And this is only partially the motor. It's partially the motor and partially the intake manifold. But the motor mount's bad, and you start giving it throttle. The motor moves around a lot more than it should, and it's obviously quite a bit out of tune. So, like I said, this problem is twofold. So first we'll do the motor mounts, and secondly we'll replace the intake manifold gasket. The old mount out. Obviously you can see it's completely broken. That's the source of the frustration. Got a brand new cheap mount here. I mean, there's really not much to removing the old mount. All you need is a 15mm wrench and a 15mm socket. And I wouldn't suggest a ratcheting, except for getting the bolt out. But use your 15mm wrench on this hole. But on the back one, the only thing you can fit over here is a socket. You can only get a wrench right here, and it has very limited movement, so once you move it that much you won't be able to get a wrench there anymore. You'll only be able to get to like right here, which if you're trying to get a stuck bolt loose, if it's rusty, use penetrating fluid, but to get it loose, just hammer and wrench. Put the wrench on and bam, hammer it loose. Simple. That in there, this in there. That's the fun part. Getting this stuff to line up. And you will have to move this plastic stuff. Now the nut on the other side of this bolt is welded on, so you won't have to hold it in place with another wrench. All you need is one wrench or socket to get this off. It's literally 2 bolts, and you can replace the torque mount and don't even have to support the motor. It's simply a problem solved. So I think it's been said by other people, but it's easier to get in this side. I mean, it's easier to put this one in first because of this plastic thing, and once you get this in, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten a bit so that I'll be able to utilize the rubber. And it's going in. Not the most ideal, but it is going in. Gosh, this thing's dirty. It's got to help the oil leak, and that's helping us out. And once you have this in, then you can kind of push the mount this way to get this one in place. And as you can see, the motor's moving around a bit, so looks like I have another mount that needs to be replaced. At least one more mount. I'm able to simply push this in place by hand by pushing this that way. Others might not be so lucky if you have better mounts. Go figure. This is why I said you couldn't use a wrench on the bolt that's farther back. You gotta put a wrench on here. You only have this much usable range, which is barely okay for a ratcheting wrench. Not so much with a regular wrench. It's just not enough space to get a wrench back here. So we'll need a ratchet. Yeah, this stuff gets in the way. Yeah. Alright, just did a bunch of like cleaning and stuff, but got a few pro tips for you guys. And this is just so dirty, so oily, so caked up. That's the new gasket. So pro tip number 1. In order for you to get to this bolt, it's like 7 you have to take off on the intake manifold, I think. Well, to get that one out, you got to take out the alternator bolt, and it's just like that. I mean, you just twist this nut and the whole thing just comes off, and that'll give you the clearance to get to this one. Another pro tip, well, on a couple of these hoses, you're gonna see these things, these little crimped hose clamps or whatnot. I just grab a screwdriver and I pry at it to get it off. It's on this one and this one. So you're gonna need an equivalent of this. If you're not gonna put it back on with pliers, then you're basically gonna need 2 hose clamps the right size. You'll need one to go right here and one to go on the hose that goes right here. And pro tip number 3, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things to take out to grab the intake manifold. I mean, the rest you just pull these little connectors off and crap. Connectors and hoses and whatnot. It's not too bad. Once again, you got to take out the connectors, the fuel injectors. You got to take out the little safety little connectors here. So basically you pry the black part out, and the blue part will go forward, then you push in on the black part and the whole thing will pop off. If you can't get it off, pry back on the black piece, pull the blue thing all the way out, and then when you push in on the little black piece, the whole thing will come out. Yeah, all the bolt sizes, or the 7 of those, are 13 millimeter. The one for the alternator is a 15 millimeter. And then one other thing that you need to know, on the bottom side of the intake manifold are these 2 like holders for the wiring harness. And you can see that's how that goes together. So basically it's like this. Get to it, it's gonna be a pain, but like I said, you pretty much just have to pry this part right here and open it up. It's a real pain to get to because, like I said, you have to get to that with the manifold still in here. So you have to detach these and move the wires out of the way before you can pull the manifold out past this stuff. Alright, so let's try to do this. Attempt to put this back on. So, wires through this one is this big one down here. Simple enough, right? No. Good luck with that. So, that's easy enough. This hose goes on here, and this hose goes on the other one and sticks in like that. But like I said, you'll need a new hose clamp. One last thing, the hose clamps I'm using are 5/16 inches to 7/8 inches, and they seem to just go over these hoses just barely. That's open all the way. Literally cannot get any closer than that. Might want to go a size larger. So yeah guys, you might have a bad motor mount if you can do this. Yeah, that's just me. Yeah, it's pretty bad.